Let me introduce our panel with a couple of keywords which echoed also from the previous speakers. There was a lot of focus on non-technological topics. We have achieved the moment in technology development and information society development when we recognize the importance of leadership, we recognize the importance of non-technological aspects, the local capacities, and collaboration. That's, I think, one of the most important learnings from the introductory speakers of today. And it's not only them who are bringing up the importance of collaboration, it is the true fact of the present times. Information societies can be successfully delivered, developed with international collaboration. Already for many years, the goals for governments around the world in regards to information society and digital transformation are similar. We want all to connect our society, to give an access to modern technologies, to build a better services, to modernize society for the social, economic, welfare, well-being goals. So we see the connection between well-established information society with the well-being of society. However, some countries, some societies have moved faster, more inclusively, and with a less and smaller investments per capita. Other words, their kind of return on investment, the efforts made are giving faster returns to society. Because the technologies we are using are similar around the world. The same technological protocol, the same technologies, then the question arises, what is done differently in some societies so that they have achieved it faster? And the answer often is, it's a cultural, social, regulatory, political things that matter, non-technological aspects. If you want to deliver your information society faster, you can't change your society, you can't change your culture. However, what we have seen so far is that every country has its own path, every country needs to develop its own capacities and to find the way for the priorities, including also ICTs on the government and broader social agendas. We learned today also that international cooperation and international development assistance is more and more embedding ICT into its agenda. It's no longer a question whether there is an environmental project or educational project of collaboration or infrastructure development project for collaboration. It's not just education, but it includes always a part and portion of ICT. This means for the countries, stronger and better coordination which is needed across the different sectors in order to maximize the benefit of ICT. So the stronger and bigger national collaboration and coordination are needed. On the other hand, it's also something which donors and partners in the international collaboration and cooperation need to keep in mind. They need also to develop capacities to analyze, to appraise the projects and programs dedicated to environment or to education or human rights, which include embedded ICT. So it's a learning curve for both, for the governments, for societies, as well as international audience and partners. Another thing which we have learned is an importance of learning from neighbors, learning within the region, having a champions, having a centers of competencies which can learn and distribute the competence within the regions. And we have never said that Estonian e-government model is something that suits everybody. We are also learning every day to renew our e-governance systems, and we are learning from others how to do it. The similar approach is something which we have always recommended also to others. Countries where e-governance academy has worked and collaborated, over 50 countries around the world already. We need to build a local capacity, local awareness, local agenda to build up an institutions that support that development agenda, to ensure that it's also supported with a regulatory and legal environment, and finally to make sure that it's also serving the needs and demands in society. So we are in the very interesting moment right now where both the demand for collaboration, the supply for collaboration is at most timely. And without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage our panelists of this session. And we have a very diverse group, as you can imagine, of the different competencies around the world. Habin Ajamyan from European Union delegation of Armenia. Arvo Ott, the Executive Director of E-Governance Academy. Please, you can choose your seats. Eric Ramirez, Director of E-Government of Secretariat of the Office of the President from El Salvador. Distinguished Roba Janemai Morgan, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Technology, Communication and Innovation from Mauritius. And Sara Fernandez, United Nations University. We have set up our stage so that each of the panelists will reflect her view on the state of the art and experiences they have gained and have on collaboration and cooperation for the information society development. And then we follow up with a discussion and try to engage also audience as much as possible. But if I may, without further ado, I would like to start with the ladies first, if it's okay with you. So, Madam Permanent Secretary, if I may, to ask you to be the first speaker. This is also a good place to, or if you prefer, you can go on. Yeah, please.
Thank you. This is a bit awkward. Okay, thank you. Chair and members of the panel, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Being given that this panel is based on cooperation, I would like to, my presentation is here to look a bit about the basic of Mauritius, and then I'll talk about the cooperation that being in the ICT sector, we are planning to engage with Estonia, and then we'll give you a brief about what are the activities, the digital state of Mauritius. Some basic background about Mauritius. You know, Mauritius, it's a small island of the coast of Madagascar with a population of 1.3 million. The official language is English. The GDP per capita, it's $9,600 US. We are an upper middle income country, and the GDP growth is 3.6. Coming to some international ICT indicators, you have heard this morning the speakers talking about Mauritius. In many indicators, Mauritius is first in Africa. For example, the Mo Ibrahim Index, Mauritius has been ranked first for the past 5 years. For the e-governance survey, 2016, of the United Nations, Mauritius is ranked 58 out of 193 countries. For the Global Innovation Index 2016, 53rd out of 168 countries. These have been compiled by the World Intellectual Property Organization and World Economic Forum. On the Network Readiness Index, Mauritius is positioned 49th out of 139 countries. For the Global Services Location Index, Mauritius is positioned 30th. We scored the 9th best over 105 economies on the Global Security Index, compiled by the International Communication Union. And for the ICT Development Index, Mauritius is ranked 23rd out of 175 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, Mauritius has long-standing relationship with Estonia. In April 2015, Mauritius expressed its interest in hosting the e-Governance Academy, the Regional E-Governance Academy. This proposition got immediate support from the Indian Ocean Commission member states, namely Union of Comoros, Madagascar, Seychelles, and France. This support was officially expressed by the Supreme Authority of the Indian Ocean Commission, the Council of Ministers, in 2016. So Mauritius had thus a regional mandate to host a regional e-governance academy. We have started some background. We have started cooperation as from 2013, when a representative of Estonia, Ambassador Khan, participated in a regional conference in ICT and paved the way for a strong collaboration. We have worked with e-Governance Academy of Estonia, and IOC sent 2 missions of high officials of technicians in 2015 and 16. May I also recall that the Ministry of ICT, of whom I'm the permanent secretary, as well as the Indian Ocean Commission, signed an MOU with Estonia e-governance in September 2015 at the Estonian Prime Minister's office. Subsequently, a team of experts of Estonian Governance Academy, led by its director, came to Mauritius last January to provide technical assistance and carry out capacity building activities for the establishment of a regional e-governance academy in Mauritius. Experts from all Indian Ocean Commission member states and attend meetings and technical sessions during which we discuss the modalities of such a regional structure, as well as made an assessment of the specific needs. Now we are embarked in a dynamic process that should lead towards the effective implementation of regional e-governance academy, and this should also include a regional ICT observatory. I want to stress on the fact that the ambition of a Mauritius-based e-governance academy is not only to serve Mauritius, but the whole region, that is to say, Indian Ocean Islands, as well as the Eastern and Southern Africa, particularly COMESA and SADC member states. Indeed, since Mauritius is member of both COMESA and SADC, we already benefit from a ministerial decision from IOC Council of Ministers. The work of the Regional E-Governance Academy should be supported, like I said, by the ICT Observatory. We do hope that the cooperation of the ESA-IO region, Indian Ocean region, as well with Estonia, cover training, technical assistance, sharing of experience, with a strong emphasis on cybersecurity and an objective of citizen-centric approach for ease of procedures and doing business as well. In a nutshell, I would say that an e-governance academy for the region can support our countries in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, namely Goal 9, as well as the implementation of the African Union 2063 agenda. So this is not a project approach that we are nurturing, but it is a program approach, since the objective of the academy is also to accompany a mindset shift towards a digital economy. Let me now give you a brief on the digital state of Mauritius, actually. The contribution to GDP of the ICT sector, it was 5.5% in 2016. The growth rate is 5.3%. Number of people employed in ICT, actually, it is 23,000. Number of companies which have been set up, it's 750. In terms of infrastructure, we have the international regional fiber connectivity. This was an issue which was raised this morning. We have the SAFE project, which connects Europe, Africa, India, Indian Ocean, and India. We also have the LION project, which connects Mauritius, Réunion, and Madagascar. We have set up 350 Wi-Fi spots in public places around the island. And we are working towards an additional 250 Wi-Fi spots. Mobile phone penetration has reached 144%. Broadband penetration in terms of fiber connectivity has reached 70%, and the government is planning to reach 100% by December 2017. Broadband penetration has reached 68%. Access to technology, penetration of PCs is 50%, and government has 92 public internet access points and 280 computer clubs around the island where training in ICT is being given free. Internet literacy is 90% in Mauritius. In terms of electronic transaction, like digital banking, most of our local commercial banks offer international banking. In terms of e-governance, the government of Mauritius, we have revamped the government portal. We are working on connecting all secondary schools to 10 MPBS. We are going to introduce the e-health project. We have introduced, there is a system on social security. We have introduced a human resource management information system to digitalize the human resource processes for the whole civil service. 69 e-services are already operational, and we are developing 41 more. In terms of open data, we have an open data policy. We are working on the open data readiness. And the next step, actually in Mauritius, we just had a workshop which has been sponsored by the World Bank in order to assist us. The next step is to set up the open data portal and to release around 250 data sets as open data. For data and service sharing, the government of Mauritius, we are using the Info Highway for improving service delivery. So there is the publisher and the subscriber, and they agree one type of information they are requested so that they don't have to duplicate information already available. So we are at least 25 requests have already been approved, and there are so many, again, in the pipeline. In terms of the cybersecurity, this is a major concern, as has been raised this morning. What we did in Mauritius, we already have an online reporting system to address complaints. And for this, we have the CERT-MU of Mauritius. We work together with the Data Protection Office, with the Police Department, with the legal from the State Law Office to address cyber attacks. But we are still working on how to address imminent attacks. This is still on. And when it concerns for the citizen, the Prime Minister of Mauritius just released the National E-Citizens Portal. This is a software, it is a strategy whereby complaints, whatever complaints, suggestions are put online. So these are transferred to ministries concerned. There's like one-stop shop where all complaints are centralized, and we get the results out of it. And this is working. In terms of the capacity building, we have the University of Mauritius, University of Technology, and other universities which are running courses, formal courses. But we also we worked with Oracle, IBM, and other operators for training in ICT. In the budget measures, we have introduced that 4,000 people will be trained in ICT, and we are working towards that. So these are some of the indicators and the positioning of Mauritius in terms of ICT. But in addition to that, that is why we feel that we are confident, we are prepared to welcome the e-regional academy together with the observatory so that we can help Mauritius and other countries of the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. It's certainly the most best is to learn that you have found also your path towards an international collaboration, and your model is also to become and to serve as a regional hub and competence center for your area. Started also from other speakers, the local competence sharing and capacity building is at most important. Sara, you work at United Nations University. Many of you thought that you are Japan-based, but however, United Nations University is working all around the world with the different centers. Few words about you and your activities and your experience on international collaboration.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation, and I would like to particularly mention Martin for all the support he gave me. I don't know where he is. For all the support that he gave me to arrive here. I lost my suitcase, so sorry for the shoes. As you were mentioning, I come from United Nations University. We are the academic branch of the United Nations. We are the only institution in the United Nations system that gives degrees. We do have master and PhD's degrees, particularly for government fellows and academic fellows that work in e-government. UNU, in short, has 13 institutes and 3 operating units around the world. We are based in Helsinki, in Maastricht, in Dresden, in Tokyo. We have work in Venezuela. Well, we used to have work in Venezuela. We have worked in Ghana and Senegal. We will have an institute, or we have an institute since the beginning of the year. We have a twin institute in Mozambique, Flores, that is with Dresden. And we, in 2014, we moved a unit from Macau, where we also have an institute. We used to have a center of electronic governance, and we move, and we have now an operating unit on electronic governance. And by the end of this year, we'll be the 14th institute of the United Nations University, a fully fledged institute. We have worked with over 50 countries in the past 12 years of existence. That is when the e-governance center started in Macau, including Estonia, where we organized IceGov, our main conference in 2011. So maybe next year we can organize again. As I mentioned, we work with over 50 countries around the world. We do research, we do capacity building, we organize events, and in particular over the next, from the past years, we have extensively working with Latin America, mainly Colombia, where we developed the Government Chief Information Officer, where we established and where we prepared the local universities to have this particular subject in their curriculum. So we developed the national curriculum for GCIA function. And recently, with the support of the European Commission, we worked with the PALOP countries, as also we assist the CPLP. CPLP is the Community of Portuguese-speaking countries, which include Mozambique, that are here today, Cape Verde, it's here, Angola, São Tomé e Príncipe, Bissau, East Timor, Brazil, and Portugal, and most recently Equatorial Guinea, which speak Spanish. Hopefully soon they will start speaking in Portuguese. Hopefully. So we developed, my friends from Mozambique are laughing. It is quite interesting to have a CPLP event in Equatorial Guinea, and where we have to have translation. So recently, as I was mentioning, we worked with African-speaking countries, mainly with Mozambique. and Cape Verde, where we are developing European-funded project, Portuguese and European-funded project on capacity building, but also assessing the needs of the country. So basically what we do, besides all the research, we do and we develop national strategies for the governments. And this goes in several ways. I've listened, and I will for sure listen, many of you complain how governments, when they hear fashionable words like smart cities and e-governance, they want to jump on that without being fully prepared. And by fully prepared, I mean the locals have the expertise to deal with these subjects. I developed recently, I will not mention the country for obvious reason, a course for diplomats. And diplomats are always difficult to teach, always. They go around, but they never focus. So, and on the modules that I developed, there was one on cybersecurity, which, by the way, you are organizing a NATO event here on cybersecurity. Congratulations also. And the ambassador and minister also worked at the module and said, oh, no. This, no, too technical. You don't understand this. Why are you putting this here? And I said, remember the case of NSA and espionage? Okay, we want that. Let's move the entire course. We want espionage as the... So basically, they jump on keywords. And this is a problem for countries, particularly developing countries, because they do have struggle to find the financial resources. Then they jump without being fully prepared. And unfortunately, there are not so many, or there are not honest people in this area. If they are lucky, they will find UNU or Estonian Academy. But it's always difficult because at the end of the day, for some countries, this is a way to make some money and not really caring about the people. The American Constitution has one of the founding fathers of the American Constitution has one of the best lines, and we should always keep that in mind. We, the people. And I think that politicians often forget the people. And what we do, again, going back to what UNU does, we not only do local capacity for directors in national agencies, but we also try to teach politicians, ministers and secretaries of state. I was in politics for more than 20 years. I was a deputy of a minister of technology, and it's difficult to teach politicians. It's a hard task, and it's also difficult for them to understand what the higher level of agencies, like directors, are trying to explain to them. It's the same way as the espionage case. It's the wording. They do not understand. For them, e-governance or electronic government, it's something fashionable, but it's not really interesting because they immediately see, okay, this guy is going to bring me now the social media. I have to deal with people complaining. I know that they don't have water. I know the sewing is not working. I don't want to deal with that. So we have to teach also the leaders the need to pay attention to this topic. And just to finish, because you will see, I'll talk a lot. I talk a lot. So sorry. We have, from 2 weeks now, I just came from New York. We are going to develop with UNDESA, that is the Department of Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations, something that I think some of you may heard about, the e-government survey ranking. So you have another group of people to complain about if you don't like where your country is in the position. So we are going to change the methodology. And why is that? Because we listen, and particularly us at UNU, that have more contact with people that are really working at the field. We listen how unsatisfied they are with this because their efforts are not recognized. So I particularly remember having a meeting 2 months ago in Mozambique, and they were saying, listen, e-government, you don't do that from day to night. It takes time. You need to build infrastructures. You need money. You need to prepare people. So countries are not really, their efforts is not being recognized. So what the novelty of this survey that will be released in 2018 is that we will have a chapter where we will promote the countries that are actually doing a good job in building their infrastructure, so that they don't demotivate. Because the countries that are on top, they will continue on top. They are way ahead, and we need to close the gap between countries. So basically, this is what we do, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing very straightforward and honestly the broader situation, and also bringing to our attention the fact that digital revolutions are something which, well, if we think 100 years ago, 1917, the revolutions took place over a weekend. 2017 revolutions also take place, digital revolutions, but they took and they take 1 decade. Every day, something small is needed to be done in order to make the revolution happen. And also every day something happens. If you don't do anything, that revolution happens anyway, but you will be lagging just behind. This means that's also the reason why it's so important to have a national agendas and also to have it beyond the kind of flame of political beauty and thinking about short-term votes. Thank you once again. And let's move ahead with El Salvador. Eric, would you be sharing with your experience and with your angle on international collaboration and cooperation, especially in your country perspective?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Maybe just to start about El Salvador, I don't know how many of you actually know of my country, because it's a very small place in Central America. Probably you're most likely familiar with Costa Rica, which is one of our neighbors. So if you keep going up north, before you hit Mexico, you're bound to see El Salvador. It's only 21,000 square kilometers, so it's even less than half the size of Estonia. There's 6 million people living there, and because of the economic situation and the violence, there's over 3 million people that have migrated. The average income per year is $3,000, and the economic growth has been sustained at a pace of 2%, 2.5%, as long as I can remember. In terms of international cooperation, I will say that I myself consider that I'm a product of international cooperation. As you probably know, El Salvador went through a civil war in the 80s, and because of that, I grew up as a refugee with the help of the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. So I was able to stay safe and then finish a college degree. And then through international cooperation, I was able to finish graduate degrees in business and telecom in different countries. And now I'm back in El Salvador, and I was appointed to lead the e-government office that was just created about a year ago. So we are definitely newcomers in this field. However, it is very exciting to see all the cooperation, the connections that are being built across the world. And this is actually a funny story, because when I started my job, I realized one of the main things that you have to do was start connecting registries. So I started to look around to see the experiences in different countries, and I stumbled upon X-Road. And I installed it, downloaded it, tweaked it so that we could start using it. And then at some point, Estonia and IGA came along, and I started hearing about all these things around X-Road. So in our case, X-Road came first, and then we learned about the Estonian experience, so we didn't really know much about the country. At this point, it's been a blessing because obviously we don't have a budget to spend in these kinds of projects. We're trying to strengthen the government priorities, which are the health sector and the education sector. Since December last year, X-Road has been installed in our country at the President's office. And we've been able to connect 6 agencies that are mainly to do with the birth and citizen ID data that is shared across these agencies. So it's definitely making some impact. We've been able to close a gap in the vital records statistics. For the first time, we've been able to generate up-to-date data in regards to how many people are being born in the country. Traditionally, it has been a lag of at least 3 years to combine all that data. So for the first time, we are able to do that thanks to the help of the marvelous product that Estonia was able to produce and share with us. And then at the regional level, we are also participating at the network of directors of e-government. It's a network with over 30 countries that are participating and exchanging their experiences. And I was lucky enough to present what I'm telling you last week in Mexico. And this is another space where X-Road and Estonia is being taken as a success story and being shared among those countries. I think there's a lot of opportunities to share what we learned and reuse what we've been able to use in the past and the success stories. So that's pretty much what I have to share with you, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Erik. Few days ago, well, who don't know the term used here, X-Road is a kind of technical term about Estonian way of interconnecting different registers and databases into a secure service delivery layer. And we have recognized, well, you downloaded, how much did you have to pay for that?
Right now, it's free. The project between Finland and Estonia, it's published in GitHub, so you can download the entire code and do whatever you want with it.
Precisely. And this is one of the reasons why many don't think it's possible, because if you talk about real e-governance software solution, they say $200 million. Now we are talking about real solution. And then there is something free, which people in El Salvador download, install, and start using. 6 registries interconnected. No, not possible. And sometimes it means that a country like El Salvador will leap over many other countries with a budget of millions and millions in terms of e-governance development. And thank you also for sharing your story with us. Let's go ahead and listen another small country not far away, Armenia, and the experience on working with donor perspective also in a country like Armenia. You have been working at European Commission delegation over there. Please, yes. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's a great pleasure also for me to come from Armenia. Armenia is not an ACP country. Armenia is one of the neighborhood countries of Europe, but I think I was invited to talk about how EU and Armenia did collaborate in e-governance, and how EU and EGA did collaborate in e-governance in the region. Maybe also to give you one word about Armenia. Armenia is a tiny country. It's a country where in the past, Norway boat landed on Mount Ararat as the first Christian country. And I think just for my colleague from the eGov Academy there, it's called EKENK. I mean, to a little bit explain the country we're coming from. I'm working for the EU delegation. I'm head of cooperation there. And I wanted to come back on the topic of how to focus international cooperation on a topic of importance. The first thing, as you all know, a donor is supposed to support a strategy of a country. So you need a strategy, and then you need a capacity. But coming back of what is a strategy, I think it's very important, and for us, there was key into our support of what is e-governance. E-governance is a public administration reform approach. It's not a technological approach. Technology come after. At the core of e-governance, you need to, yes, first, be connected. And what is the most important, you need basic database, digitalized database. You need to know who is who, where is where, activities, and property. This is very important. Starting from this basic, you can start building a system, and this is what EU has been doing under the guidance of the Prime Minister, of the Deputy Prime, no, the Governance Office and EKENC, my colleague here. We've been supporting the digitalization of the civil registry, meaning that we took all the data of the civil registry, we digitalized them, and then we ensure the connection between the civil registry and the hospital to know when people are born, when people are dead, and different, allowing first for citizens when they're married, when they give birth, to have a certificate in an easy way. So that was the first and fundamental step to move forward. To continue to build on it, we recently, the EU financed and supported the election process, but the election process means you need to know who is who can vote, who cannot vote, who are resident. So we further support the development of e-identity in a tool to be used during the election to make sure that people who are dead cannot vote, to make sure that people cannot vote 2 times. And I think in this sector, EU is supporting a lot of the countries around here on preparing election. And while preparing election, it's the key moment to build up also your e-identity capacity. Through our support to election, we supported also the e-identity, in a sense, the physical e-identity. So through budget support, EU made sure that in coming 3 years, every single Armenian citizens will have a physical e-identity that would open the door to different services. But there is not only physical e-identity, we have been also supporting mobile identity. And last week, the government of Armenia adopted the legislation regarding mobile identity. And through our budget support, we will help them to spread mobile identity. This is what we are doing in the sector of e-identity, one other pillar. We will also probably explore, once you have the framework of e-identity, like e-residency. This is something very interesting in Estonia, where you grant a certain right to foreigners. Armenia, and we had high-level discussion, might be interested to grant e-diaspora model, to grant his diaspora a certain right in the country or certain way of doing business. The cornerstone of what we have been doing was building this e-identity. Then we worked on the business registry. It's also important to know what are the business, who are doing the business. We've been supporting the interlink between the both to ensure that you can pay tax with your e-identity. Now we are launching a big project to enhance custom with a single window. So we're working in business. We've been working in notary to know who owns what. Very important to know who owns what. Once you populate I think the government, the services, the agency with e-solution, and usually it populates. There's enhancement, there's a movement. Every single ministry wants to do something, whether it's education, whether it's health. Then you need to do what it's called the interoperability. And this is a moment where you really leverage the change, where you make sure that what I've done in e-identity will be leveraged in what I'm doing in e-health, will be leveraged in what I'm doing in e-notary. Regarding this interoperability, there is a key decision for the government to be taken. And I think that there's a shift in philosophy. It's very important, and it's not minimal. Do you want to go toward an open interoperability system, or are you going to listen to the people who are selling centralized management system? A lot of people in the market will tell you, I have the key, sign there, I have a system, will solve your issues. We believe as EU in Armenia, because I'm only talking about EU in Armenia, that under the leadership of the government that wanted to have a decentralized approach, That was a wise approach. That was a wise approach because that allows to populate different services. So EU will support this interoperability. We have a tender ongoing. We have a big tender ongoing. Furthermore, now that we're moving in that direction, we're entering another field, which is e-health. There has been an attempt by other donors, I would say in particular World Bank, to develop a little hospital management tool. They call it e-health. It has nothing to do with e-health from my point of view. But EU has the capacity to work on the registries. You have to work on the registries of what are the disease, what are the prescription, what are the medicines, where are the hotel, get the hospital, sorry, get it interconnected. And you will not only gain in efficiency, but you will also control better your the quality of the medicines. This is a problem we have in Armenia. This is a problem we have all around the world, like fake medicines. This is important. So we're supporting better governance in e-health thanks to the interconnection with e-identity. We also have an approach where the question is, how do you coordinate? You only coordinate if you have a shared vision with the government. We also target our support in the justice sector toward e-justice. Yes, EU has been financing the construction of 2 and the refurbishment of 12 tribunals in Armenia. Yes, EU has been supporting legal reform for years. Yes, we have been putting more than 60 million euros to make sure the system is ready. But at one point, you want it to be more efficient. And there, e-solution help. E-solution help because you want predictability. You want a judgment to be similar, if there was a similar judgment before. So you need to digitalize all the court decisions. You want also to implement fairness. So you want to randomize the attribution of case to your judge. So you need services. You want to optimize the management of your different tribunal. So we're supporting also through this a better understanding. The interesting thing when you start to see the link between the different part of data management-driven policy making is that you can better adapt your policies. In education, for example, in Armenia, there is very interesting tools that interconnect all the schools, all the teachers, all the kids. So every day you know who in which school has what grade. Very interesting. It's so transparent. EU has been supporting in this process a better gathering and understanding of the result, the data, to better support education. So our support in education will be enhanced by this knowledge. But for sure, when you're moving into this interconnectivity and policy-based driven decision, there are some very important steps to be taken. Data protection. So data protection is of essence because the more you populate the registries, the more you have to make sure that people's rights are protected. In this case, EU has been supporting not only the law on data protection that is in line in Armenia to EU directive, but also the setting up of the Personal Data Protection Agency, and will continue. So I would say coordination of a donor can only be done under the leadership of a government. And this, we are grateful for the Armenian government to have a clear leadership. However, leadership means also understanding that there are key steps toward having an interconnected and e-governance society. The point is not to have internet. The point is not the interface. The point is to have database with reliable data. And the point also is to build every time you can, in whatever project, toward the direction of having this enhancement. And for me, election is the key moment where you can update your data civil registry, make sure that you know who is going to vote, and then on this you can build e-health, on this you can build social services also. I think from the African continent, it's very interesting what's happening in South Africa regarding social services. They had a different approach, but more or less they're building a data knowledge of who can get some advantage from social security. And I think in Armenia, if the government agrees, we will further support them in ensuring and better leveraging e-solution, e-ID solution in this sector. In terms of number, we didn't put that much amount of money in Armenia. We spent maybe 25 million euro in e-services, e-ID. compared to the overall budget. And compared to the budget, I mean, every single country of you receive from the EU is not a lot. So if there is one thing to be remember is that you need the basic data registry. You don't need to jump to the solution where there's an IT process at the end. You need to know who is who, what is the land, who owns what business, activities. This is key. Once you do this, a lot of companies will come and sell you a turnkey project. This is a political decision if you want a turnkey project or not, but Estonian example is not a turnkey project, and then it's up to every single government to decide the solution. So I think that was the reason why Armenia was invited to this ACP country meeting, but we're really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much also for sharing the donor's perspective and daily activities and priorities and the struggle of donor decision making in the country. We certainly would like to come back also to that aspect. And finally, in our panel, Mr. Arvo Ott, the Executive Director of E-Governance Academy, and about our experience and E-Governance Academy experience working in different countries. The picture is extremely diverse. We have been working with 60 countries, some who rank very top of the network readiness and information society indexes, and some who have not even qualified to be part of that index, or countries who have just been created or established and that's the reason why they have never been before on any indexes. Arvo, please.
Thank you. I'm not starting from explaining what Estonia is about. You saw it already last few days, and only one comment that our population is also 1.3 million, which is pretty same like in Mauritius and some other small countries. First question usually people ask in Estonia is more probably this is a reason why we made very fast developments, and usually I try to explain that it's not about how big or small you are, not about technology, but about cooperation and coordination and doing things together. So a few words to talk about capacities and knowledges. I came to government, I was first person in State Chancellor or Prime Minister office, had the task to coordinate e-government in 1993. And my background is technology. I thought that I know more or less everything about databases and networks, and I can make programming and everything. I was working 12 years, and what I learned was that it's not about technology. You should have knowledge about legislation. You have to know about policy making, public sector. You have to know about budgeting. You have to know many, many things. And then you were starting to look around at what universities are doing, if we can get this type of persons in government, because this is a key question. If you develop something, you can't import knowledge easily, because just some foreign people, of course, can advise, but the knowledge should be in the country. So this was a little bit the motivation also for e-governance academy, just to look some of those competencies which are crucial and very important, and try to find out if Estonia or our academy can do something, or if we can find some good models for others. And that's why just a little bit focusing on some knowledges which are not non-academic. So we can have pretty nice academic knowledge about programming or whatever, cryptography or something from universities. But as soon you are going to government, you have to mix all those political, non-political planning, legislation, everything together. And this knowledge is missing. Then now our academy's name is academy, but we are not very much academic, because we just use our Estonian very practical knowledge. Sometimes also academic, but not too much. And this is like what we feel also. And every time we are going to a new country, we try to understand if the knowledge is in place. And if there are not enough knowledge about some of the processes, some key issues, then it's very risky to start with the technologies. So it means that we saw many examples where I am not saying about any concrete countries, but some foreign companies have done very fancy technology solution with many millions, and at the end they are not able to understand how to make new services. Every time they have to ask somebody to come from another country to help them, and this is not sustainable. So that's why we, in our academic side, we try to look at different target groups, which are most important. First thing you mentioned already about politicians. And the politicians quite often think that, okay, e-government is about programming and technology. First question was in State Chancellor, I remember under State Secretary was asking that, okay, just everybody saying that network is not working. So it's ordinary user simply didn't have access to services, but she told the network is not working, so just politicians or top managers were saying that, okay, now we have to do with the network. They found $1 million Estonian crowns, which was a lot of money, and they started to rebuild the network. And second just case was that, okay, the web provider was asked to make content also. Now everybody understands that the content of web is not a question of technologies. So there many misunderstandings which should be explained, and then it's quite often very high level. It's like state secretaries, politicians, etc. Now, second level is, which is also very, very important, is IT management. It's very difficult, again, to get from university good IT managers, because usually they are either technology people, either lawyers, either just public administration people. So it's, again, some need for a mixture. So that's why we believe that this competence is quite often missing or should be focused. And then e-governance academy side, we try to look on those competences which are important. And of course, at the end, it's the competence of end users. So from Estonia, we have this experience also that it was widely cooperation with private sector, with offering training for ordinary people, older people. Banks were very happy about this type of things because the clients were, for banks, internet banking clients are very profitable. So it's like cooperation with banks and telcos and private sector. It was possible to offer also training for end users. So it's like a different level of knowledge is starting from processes, political level, issues, legislation, management, architectures and technology as well. And so it's like what from my side I would like to emphasize simply that this is what we are not happy to go with technology projects in some countries if we don't feel that basic understanding and basic competence are in the country. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. So that's why I think also that it was relevant for our conference just to look together at some models. Of course, models might be different. We have also cooperation with universities. We are doing something together with schools sometimes, but also looking at how to make type of competence centers in some regions, or how to cooperate in this field. We're focusing on those issues which are missing, or which is weak, or which is critical for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvo, for bringing in also the historical perspective. And we can imagine there are still countries and president offices and prime minister's offices which have one email address, prime minister at country, and all the mail is printed out and distributed to people. And there are some countries where there is no email address at all. I think the president's only tweeting, and now they have filters to establish with lawyers reading first the tweets in order to make also some sort of sense out of whatever is tweeted. Our discussion involved so many aspects about aspirations, creating regional competence centers and enhancing the collaboration, reality checks around true delivery of education and competencies on the field of e-governance, the aspiration of the kind of startup country. I would call right now the El Salvador approach as a startup country with its aspiration on moving fast and quickly. EU delegation's view, I wonder, you were often using the word we. Remember?
You.
We do, we do. Who is we in Armenia really? Is it the European Union delegation? When you say we are doing and we are, and next we are building e-health, I remember you were saying. Who is the we?
That's I think at the core of cooperation, you have the Paris, the Accra, the Busan, agreement where donors are meant to support national strategies. So the ownership is national strategies. And when you've been working closely with the government and we've working closely with an agency, you you work as a team because this is it. When I say we, I mean we EU supporting, they, the government supporting the different agencies, supporting also we eGov Academy that has been doing 2 projects that will do the second one. Whatever has been done, the most important, I think the philosophical approach of eGov Academy has been of a huge impact. And here I would like to thank Iva Tallo for all the work he has done, not only on technical assistance, but on giving the right vision to the government that trickles down to the people who implement, the right vision to the donors that trickle down from me to my hierarchy, to me to my staff, where we, and then good ideas are always taken from the others. We, sharing the same vision, believe that it is the way forward. We can do it because we need each other. The government needs us because we're supporting as a donor. We're also supporting as technical assistants. eGov Academy need us because we are supporting them substantially financially, I would mean. And we need you, otherwise what is the point of doing cooperation? So the we is all together believing we can make a change. And in Armenia, we are making a change.
Thank you so much, because that was a very good explanatory note about what is our aspiration when we are collaborating. It's a we feeling we want to create. We want country and the government to recognize that this is their project. We want donors to recognize that this is also their project. Consultants and technology people to recognize that this is their project. So this is a shared vision and shared responsibility. Before giving an opportunity for audience to speak, I would like to address one thing which was raised a number of times already, and that's about the kind of neutrality of technology. It has been always said that technology is not good per se, and neither is technology not bad. And finally, to confuse you, technology is never also neutral. There is always something which comes with technology. And so often we see also the case which you represented and highlighted from Armenia is that technology includes an agenda, technology includes also philosophy, technology includes sometimes hidden walls you can hit when you make choices which tie you with a certain either philosophical or corporate or donor approach. My honest and open question would be for you all. Have you been facing the situations where you have offered a donor assistance and international collaboration offers where you see and recognize that they are including a technological tie-in where technology includes also agenda? Let's start with you, the most recent experience.
I mean, yeah, as a newcomer into this field, I've been approached by a number of cooperation agencies, but it is clear that there's a certain solution that I'm supposed to be getting with that cooperation. So in a way, it's a form of vendor lock-in, because once we start using that, it's going to be hard to move away from it, which is not necessarily bad, but I mean, I concur with everything that everyone said here, that technology has to be part of a more all-encompassing strategy. So at the end of the day, you might very well have success with one particular product from one country or one vendor, as long as it fits within your overall strategy. I think that's the main point here.
How about Mauritius? You also have a very broad technology policy and strategy framework. How do you make sure that the technologies are not kind of sabotaging, making espionage around your strategy, but they rather fit to your goals?
Well, in the context of Mauritius, we have several donor agencies providing assistance to Mauritius. And it is a whole of government approach, for example, in terms of projects. But say, for example, for the e-health project, we can't do it, start from the whole project. So we are planning to do it on a phase basis. But then the problems arise, it is when we look for the first phase, we look at the procurement procedures. So there are some challenges in that, because if you do the first part, the second part, you have to adapt to satisfy all the requirements of the Public Procurement Office. And this is a major challenge, because at times the software is not compatible, or you have other issues as well.
How about you? Have you felt the stress or pressure on non-neutral technologies or technologies with an agenda? Have you worked with governments which come to you and say, we are locked in, help us?
Yes, and it's very difficult always to have a straight answer to this. It's always, when we think about what we are doing here, we are talking about all the stakeholders that exist, and private companies are there. They exist. So we have a lot of experience with where open source worked, and Estonia is a good one. There is, I think it was Munich that a few years ago decided to have all the municipality running on Linux and open source, and after a while they faced the wall of proprietary software, so they have to change again. I'm personally an advocate of open source, definitely, especially it's kind of tricky to say this, especially for developed countries. And why is that? Because they are more prepared to use open source. And then to bring it to developing countries. We need software companies, we need proprietary software, we need all of them. But what governments, particularly, because when it goes to a national strategy, it's a matter of a government decision. Government should pay attention what is best for a medium long term for the country, and not for immediately solution and for somebody else's interest. So it's always very tricky, this kind of question, and it's very sensitive. But yes, we already face that.
How about Armenia? European Union is not the only donor. There are coalitions of donors and consortium of donors. You mentioned also World Bank and many other institutions working in a recipient country. Have you faced a kind of ideological or philosophical conflict in between the donors approaching and helping governments to achieve their goals?
I think competition, I've seen more competition between different ministries of the government regarding the vision of where things should go. And this is a normal process. A government is a diversity of ministry with a diversity of approach. I don't think we have to go for open source everywhere. This is a decision, but it's important that the overarching pictures, and here we're talking about the interoperability, allows whoever to talk. This is slightly different. If there is a nice plug-in software to do environmental survey, land, and it's a turnkey software, there's nothing wrong about buying it. There's nothing wrong about buying the license, as long as it can liaise with other key databases. So I would say, who are the people? There are some key databases that have to be owned by the government. There are other things that could be externalized. And what is important is the discussion, the interoperability. This has to be open. Otherwise, you have to have a plan that foresee already what you want at the end. And usually, development or progress are one step ahead. It's not a plan you have, it's a direction. So in this sense, we've seen tension in the government, but this is normal, and we play the role, coalition of donor, coalition of people thinking, the we of the community who believe in the one step ahead approach have been pushing in the right direction. Another thing, when you talk about technology, that technology has an agenda, for sure it has an agenda, in a sense where we also work as, when we were working and supporting the government on e-identity, we also work on the car, the identity of the cars. It was much easier because you want every single car to be registered and you want the registration to be, that cuts corruption. Just to identify your car and to have a plate numbers, you cutting corruption. You don't say it, it's a petty corruption, it's okay. But in the whole movement, you have also to demonstrate on some victories that you move ahead. So yes, technology, when you say, I want to do an e-immatriculation, in a way you say, I want it efficient, and the reality you say, and you mean, I want to cut corruption. So there's an agenda.
Thank you. And there was also another point I think I would like to reiterate. You need a direction more than you need a plan. And that's also something which is clearly understandable, especially in the fast pace of technology development and technology generations right now. Arvo, you have been also working with different countries with different technology approaches. And before Arvo starts to answer, we have microphones in the room, and if there is a question, raise your hand and you will be approached. But now first, Arvo.
Okay, I think and I believe that what is needed, of course, to have a big picture and some conceptual agreement, which is very much national one, which we can't transfer it easily from one country to another. We can discuss about that and advise, but sometimes it's on a paper and sometimes it's not in a paper. It doesn't matter even. We have examples where they have 5 different excellent strategy papers, but nothing happened too much. But then without this bigger picture, and it's about knowledge and understanding of the things, it's a little bit dangerous and even sometimes very dangerous if the different projects are starting to come with different maybe different donors, different ministries. And what we saw in some cases that the motivation of different projects are coming from different money owners also. So we see the center of the e-government or architecture like spaghetti. We don't understand how it's combined and how it works. So it means that you should focus in parallel with general things which are common for everybody, and then which is connected to some fields like education or healthcare or population management and others. So this is like what we saw sometimes conflicting, that they are not able just to connect. It's not problem about connecting different technologies, actually, but the plan should be in place. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have a question from the audience, or remark from the audience. Another is over there. Please, the microphone also to... Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lina. I'm Enrique Banze from ACP Secretariat, and I'm really glad to be here today. And I thank the director of this joint event that we're preparing. And also, I would like to thank member states from ACP countries being here and participating. I'm really looking forward for them to present their own experience in those countries. Just 2 quick questions, not questions, perhaps contributions. One is just a comment. Just, Lina, I like you very much, your question of we. Who are the we's? I think it is really important. It is fundamental in our countries. I mean, he mentioned himself, I mean, the Paris, the Busan, and all of this. I mean, the issue of ownership, and more importantly, even for me, alignment, and also in terms of harmonization. I mean, this is crucial issues that are cross-cutting if we are talking about international cooperation. Myself, I'm not IT as such, I'm a learning. My daughter is IT expert, me, I'm not. So I'm in the process of learning. But I will approach this in terms of international cooperation. I think this is an important and a crucial momentum that all of us will profit of it. And I'm glad that I can see different people participating. What I would like to challenge is, one, we have come to Estonia with a very known experience, and we are learning from Estonia. I like very much the approach of Estonia in saying that we are just showing you what it is possible for Estonian perspective. That means that anything we do in our country should be a specific tailored issues. So I think it is one point. A second one is that we could have experience based on specific conditions for developing countries. And we should also leverage on this experience and to try to see to what extent we can learn from each other. So I want to bring here the South-South cooperation perspective, which I think it is important because conditions in, let's say, Estonia, it's one, I mean, in terms of population, in terms of literacy, and lots of conditions. But to learn from others' experience with a more or less a similar condition, that will be important one. So from ACP perspective, we would like also to use this as an important platform. And then one or two questions to be quick. I know we're running out of time. So Sarah Fernandez, I'm from Mozambique, some Portuguese-speaking countries. I'm working to ACP. But I was just to see to what extent UN University, in fact, could cooperate with ACP in trying to be one of the driving force to help or to exchange views with our own member states. Well, with the E Academy is the same. I think we have already started, but I'd like just to see that, right? How do you see the word forward in terms of international cooperation? I'm just sticking on this. But lately, Sarah, just to say you that I'm coming from a political career, but I think you still have opportunity to teach the politicians.
Hopefully.
You know, they are the one making decisions, you know. So I think the challenge is not just the difficulty. I think let's put emphasis more on challenging how ourselves positions in terms of we put explains in such a way that they understand the importance. Because, I mean, digital revolution for me, it is a means, or digital technology, it is a mean to achieve a delivery of services. So from this perspective, I think it will be important. But I would like to hear from you how you and university and, of course, the academy could contribute to ACP countries. And then thank you.
Thank you. So let's start with Sarah. Arvo, I know already probably the distinction, academic and vocational is the approach of the collaboration. Please.
So at the UNU, we have a lot of programs where we support, it works as a platform for collaboration and cooperation between especially neighboring countries that have the same situation. We also have, we support partnerships between different, similar countries in different regions. At UNU, and me in particular, I strongly believe in knowledge. Knowledge cannot be simply transferred. T.S. Eliot had a sentence from his poem, The Rock, that says, "Where is the knowledge that we have lost in information?" So I think it's very appropriate to bring T.S. Eliot here. But we need to look at the best practices. I must say that UNU, we use a lot of the best practice that you have here in Estonia. It's an excellent example, but we cannot simply, unfortunately, we cannot take it and bring it to another country and say, let's do this. Again, quoting a person from UK, he's a scholar from actually education, Ken Robinson. He said that children are growing out of creativity, meaning that we are building a society that it's not prepared to be wrong. We cannot take the solutions and bring it to the countries and say, listen, this works there, so it's going to work here. The solutions we need to take the best examples to see how it worked, also what didn't work, prepare the country for its own solution, and learn from the mistakes. We need, on the contrary to what is happening in the educational system here nowadays, we need to be prepared to be wrong. And why is that? Let's look at what happened recently on the cybersecurity case, like three weeks ago, or with Microsoft, the patch that had the problem. I mentioned the company. Sorry. People were not prepared to deal with the mistake, with something wrong. And this is wrong, because if a country is not prepared to face a problem and not see it as a problem or as a disaster, but instead looking at it and see it as a challenge, he is not prepared for the future. So we need to be prepared to be wrong. We need to focus a lot on education. And from UNU perspective, we have a diversity of programs and projects. Normally we have, besides the PhDs and the master degrees, we have the governmental fellows programs where we bring at our own cost the people from countries, particularly developing countries, but also from, we have people from Estonia, from Russia, from UK, from everywhere, because we need to learn with each other. We have this project and this program, Governmental Fellows, where people come, they bring a problem from their own country, and for 3 months, 6 years, up to a year, we try to work. We look at the best practices around the world, and we try to find a solution. But it needs to, countries and people need to own the solutions. And this is what we do.
Arvo, quick response also.
Yeah, very short. What we are already started to do is to work together to have some competence centers, something similar to what we are doing in academy in Estonia, but including also local competences and local best practices, which exactly you told that it's relevant to know who are the neighbors, who are doing very good examples, and use this knowledge. Of course, there are train of trainers and curriculum development and technology knowledge transfers and those things. What we are doing already bilaterally with many countries is that people are coming here, usually top managers who are responsible on e-government issues, and it's a study visits. They are just working with us 1 week, visiting also different government institutions and talking about things and learning also. So this is what we try to continue, and it has been very positive. And of course, again, local best practice is very valuable. How to collect it, how to find those relevant people who can also train further on the people in the country. This is something what we are focusing and trying to do in future as well.
Thank you. Our most important time is a lunchtime for the networking. This is why we are taking one question from the audience with a microphone in your hand. Please, the floor is yours, and then we wrap up our panel. Please. Just a second, you will be helped in a second also with a microphone. Over here. Try it. Yeah, it's working now, please.
Yeah, I'm Mr. K.D. Vizo, Commissioner and Secretary Information Technology and Power from the Government of Nagaland, a small state in the easternmost part of India. My question is to Sarah Fernandez. Again, I'm sorry to the esteemed panelist for directing the question to her again. I was deeply impressed by the term which she says that politicians and diplomats are very difficult to teach. In fact, I have experienced both. I visited Estonia in 2014, e-Governance Academy, and I brought this, our Sir Arvo, Ivertolo, and all the important dignitaries to teach our people how to improve information technology in e-governance, and it was helping us a lot. On the diplomatic side, last time they came to in November, after they left, in the newspaper, in the national paper in New Delhi, they have published that the small state of Nagaland is trying to copy the Estonian model, and they are well on its way, well ahead of other neighboring states. For us, the message went well. But in the message, they have told that e-governance started during the Soviet era. And then they have used the term Baltic nation. Then one fine morning, I got a message from the Estonian embassy in New Delhi. They told that the message, what the reference is wrong. E-governance has not started at all during the Soviet era. It started after that. And I'm a novice in diplomatic matter, and I was asked to do some damage control. They're good journalists. I did not know any of them. I tried my best. At most, they gave feedback in the online, whether it works or not. But for a while, I didn't speak to the embassy, but now we are in good terms. We are constantly touching. That's one diplomatic experience. Another thing is on the political side. The system in the northeastern part of India, it's bordering Myanmar, is one of the most backward area in India. If you think of Asia, the eastern part is quite developed, and the western part of India is also quite developed. But our area, Nagaland, and bordering countries, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, these are really backward areas. And when people refer a lot about Caribbean nations and African nations, I was thinking, why not my area? Because my area also deserves United Nations attentions. So we have chosen e-governance academy to be a vehicle to move ahead in the e-governance sector. In fact, we are working with a team towards making the state of Nagaland the next IT hub in Southeast Asia. We have made quite a lot of headway. But our biggest challenge is convincing the politician. I spend a lot of time convincing them. In fact, when we tried to make e-tendering, electronic tendering compulsory, most of the politicians were refusing because the corruption, all the vices of third world countries are prevalent in my state. With so much difficulty, recently we have made it electronic tendering compulsory. And we are also now on our way to make Citizen-Centric Service Act. But passing that act is again a very difficult task. So what I would like to request is from the United Nations University, maybe is it possible for your team to come maybe through e-governance academy to our place and teach us how to go about. We already have a plan of e-governance academy, which of Nagaland, which in due course we want to develop as a small university. From the government side, whatever support is possible we'll give. But from the United Nations University, is it possible to come for knowledge sharing or any other aspects?
This is a question and discussion I would leave you to continue one-on-one. Sarah is here. Sarah is here and open for other proposals from other countries as well.
Let me just say, we have to ask if Estonia is willing to come with us. Because if they are, and even if they aren't, we are very much happy to collaborate. But let me point out that we have extensively worked in Southeast Asia. We were actually based in Macau. So we worked with Myanmar, with Nepal, with Laos, with Thailand, with the Philippines. So we have extensively worked with them. But now with Estonia, that has something that UNU doesn't have, that is the state of practice, how to do things in a country. I think that together we can be stronger and we can even help you better.
Thank you so much. And one thing I think which was also here highlighted is an issue about best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, best practice is the most overrated thing. It only shows that somebody else in totally different social, cultural, economic and technological conditions, God knows why, with an X factor of luck, achieved something. And I like so much what Sarah said. The only thing where we can learn from are mistakes made by ourselves. So our challenge also in international collaboration would be to find out the we moment, really to find the shared way, to focus on direction, not about the formalities of the plan, and to find out also the way how we can organize even conference about the mistakes we made and what we learned from those mistakes. Sharing the learning results from the mistakes is certainly much more teaching and better knowledge transfer than best practice transfer. Ladies and gentlemen, our dear panelists, thank you once again, and the lunch is served and we will be back here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Eero.
Just a moment, I would like to ask the panelists to stand up and to
Yes, we have
get
a
together for
panel
the
photo.
and the photographer will make the work.
Yeah,
And we would like to say thank you for this bright panel.